How's it going, everyone? It's Sam. Trump wants in on the stablecoin business. They just announced that they're going to be creating a stablecoin. We also have news that they're partnering with one of the biggest companies out there on something completely different. And there are multiple sources reporting that the US government has expanded their relationship with a major exchange to go and buy back Bitcoin. Let's go through this. I also want to play a clip for you too. An analyst saying that peak uncertainty is over, but there's a catch. Next week, you have to be careful of one thing. So let's go through it. If you don't mind, hit subscribe, turn on the bell notification, and let's get into it. So as you can see, Bitcoin doing pretty well today, up to $88,000. Of course, we were at 88.5 maybe yesterday, maybe slightly higher, 88.7. And we have fallen down slightly, but that's to be expected. I said yesterday we could see a rejection because we've seen several times where we've just bounced off of this $89,000 number. So it's not surprising to see a slight rejection the first time that we try to break through it. However, you can see we bounced off of this trend line, which is really positive. We bounced off of it twice, which this was a point where we got rejected by recently. A few other times. So we are flipping this back into support. We held this $74,000 region that so many people were worried about. If we broke down below this previous point of resistance, where we got rejected 1 and 2 times, a lot of people were going to go full on bear mode, but we bounced above that. And like I said, we're right back at $88,000. The traditional markets look pretty good today as well, with the NASDAQ up 0.3%. After it was up, 2% yesterday. We had inflows to the ETFs, again, the Bitcoin ETFs, $84.17 million worth of inflows here today. 7 consecutive days of inflows. This is after a really rough last, I think it was month or so before this. Maybe it was a little bit longer. But we had some significant outflows from the ETFs for a while, but now we're seeing, right around $1 billion bought up over the last 7 days, maybe just short of that. I will say the ETH ETFs are interesting too. Obviously, they didn't have quite as much demand as the Bitcoin ETFs, but I see so many people turning bearish on ETH. It'll be interesting because there are some rumors about ETH getting staking here soon. That could be the flipping point for the ETFs, in my opinion. So I still hold an ETH position, but obviously much more allocated towards Bitcoin than Ethereum. Trump Media partnering with Crypto.com to launch ETFs. Trump Media announces intention to partner with Crypto.com to launch ETFs. We already knew that they were thinking about this. I think it was maybe a month or two ago. They announced that Trump wanted to have a Bitcoin ETF, which is just kind of interesting, giving you access to buy Bitcoin, which gives them even more incentive for the price to go up, because obviously as more money comes into the ETF and as the ETF grows, the fees get higher and higher. Also, there's got to be something with the ego there, where if you have an ETF and it's one of the best performing ETFs, you want to talk about it. We also got maybe even bigger news. World Liberty Fi says its USD1 stablecoin will be backed by US Treasuries, dollar deposits, and cash equivalents. So World Liberty Fi, this is Donald Trump's DeFi project. I think it's also Eric is running it for the most part, his son. They announced that they're going to launch this dollar peg stablecoin. They obviously want in on the business. Right? Tether has a massive business. I think their stablecoin market cap is right around $140 billion, and they profited $9 billion or $7.7 billion in the last 9 months. So extremely profitable business. It's basically like you can start a bank, but it's less regulated. You have more freedom, and you have way less employees, right? I think there are going to be a lot of people that want in on this business. We've talked about that a lot on the channel, and it's one of the most profitable businesses out there. Like I said, let's say you have 1 billion in AUM, 1 billion of stablecoins, which there are a handful of stablecoins that have $1 billion. You can go take that, put 80% of it into treasuries, staggered, or maybe even more than 80%. But you can put 80% of it in treasuries, gain 4%. So 800 million times 4%, that's $32 million a year off of $1 billion. keep in mind there are stablecoins that have a lot more AUM than that. But you can see how profitable that is, and you don't really have to do much, really. So again, these are very profitable businesses, and we've seen more and more politicians and more companies talking about the stablecoin market being something that can spread dollar dominance, give access to dollars to a lot more people. So it could be good for the US dollar in their minds, and it also allows more companies to go buy treasuries, which creates more demand for treasuries, which means that the US is able to raise capital easier. There are a lot of reasons why people like this, and the business aspect of it is quite attractive. Trump getting into more than just Bitcoin. Multiple sources are reporting that the U.S. government has expanded its relationship with Coinbase and several other U.S. exchanges and OTC desks in recent days in preparation for a massive set of block trades to replace BTC improperly sold by the Biden administration. So what it sounds like, just to be clear, is they don't like that the Biden administration sold Bitcoin, or how they sold it. I'm not sure how they would have sold it wrong, but let's say that they just don't like that they sold it. Apparently, multiple sources are saying that they're just going to go out and buy it back. I don't know if that's the case, right? I don't bank on this. I don't bank on the U.S. government going out and buying hundreds of thousands of Bitcoin, but it's a possibility, right? So yeah, it's so fascinating to watch all this happen. I will say too, if you do want to trade crypto, there's a link to BTCC. You can get 10% bonus on first-time deposits. WEEX has an 800,000 USDT bonus right now too, just depending on how much you trade and how profitable you are. There are also links to Blowfin and BitUniX and Hotcoin underneath the video. I think now is just such an interesting time. Obviously, we do have a big week ahead. We have GDP on Thursday. We have PCE on Friday. We're starting to get earnings in the next couple of weeks as well. Let me play this clip for you from CNBC. This was just from a little while ago, like a few hours ago.
I think you've probably seen peak uncertainty on a range of policy outcomes, but I think there's still uncertainty, right? So market clearly has gotten more comfortable with the narrowness of the tariffs. However, next week we're going to have an announcement, and I think there is probably some headline risk that in a negotiating approach, the administration may put a very big number out there to then work its way back as it's done in the past. I mean, our base case is still that it's going to be relatively narrow, although tariff rates overall will move up.
When Becky was reading about Raphael Bostic, what occurred to me was he's totally basing it on inflation expectations, that we only get one cut because inflation stays sticky. But that would seem to imply to me that he doesn't think there's a serious growth slowdown coming in the economy that would cause, the Fed to have more than one cut. Do you think that all this, what we've heard about tariffs and Doge and...
I think uncertainty leads companies to delay decisions. So if you think about capital allocation decisions, whether it's capital expenditures or M&A, I think clearly they've pulled back. Now, how does that ripple through the economy, depending on how long this lasts? We think there's still going to be 2 cuts this year. We think there's certainly a bit of a growth scare / slowdown. Our recession odds have really not moved up that meaningfully. And the Fed is there, right? Because if you do see that growth slow down, I think they could move aggressively.
Well, some people are...
So that's interesting. One of the things that they point out there is that companies do tighten the belt a little bit when there is uncertainty. So uncertainty of recession can lead to a recession, right? They say that they haven't really priced up the odds of a recession at all. It will be interesting to watch. Obviously, we do have the tariffs next week on April 2nd. That's kind of the day that everyone's watching to see what the tariffs look like, how widespread are they, what kind of retaliation is there. But yeah, he's saying that the peak uncertainty has occurred. And we watched Tom Lee yesterday saying that a lot of the time when there are these kind of scares in the market, before the date actually comes, we bottomed, right? If there's some date in the near future a lot of people are worried about, usually we bottom before that date on max fear. And right now, yeah, the NASDAQ's up 0.47%. Let's actually look at the QQQ. since about a month ago, we bottomed around 468. We're up 5%. Now, we're still not at all-time highs. I believe all-time highs, yeah, February 18. We went down 13%. We made almost half of it back, so we still have further to go. Bitcoin, though, like I said, looking pretty good. Obviously, we're not even close to halfway back up to the all-time high here. We are about $10,000 off the bottom, 15%. We need to go up another, well, we need to go up 42% from the bottom to get to all-time highs, which from here is about 25%. All right. I'm bullish on the market. Let me know your thoughts, though, underneath the video. Again, if you want to trade crypto, there are links underneath. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I'll see you all in the next one. Bye.